Hey, welcome to another edition of the College 12 Pack. I'm your host, Pat Kahn, Senior Editor of the College Wires. With me, as always, Tyler Natuno, LSU Tigers Wire for the win. And Tyler, this is an awesome moment for us this week because we're gonna get to talk about. I think we've reached the peak of our career where we're getting to talk about video games on a podcast on this platform. We got to talk about college football 25. I think it's like one of the hottest topics going around. I mean, people are still talking. They're wanting rankings. They're wanting best players. Where should I go? Which school should I rebuild? So I just wanted to talk about the game, go over a few different things, but this is going to be fun for us talking about college football 25, a decade plus in the making as we were waiting for this game. At first, Tyler, I just have to get what were your first impressions to kind of the build up, the hype, and did it deliver in the way that you thought it would? Just real quick, I want to say that my expectations were high, and it still eclipsed that. I mean, it was right up there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd pretty much agree with that. Like, I remember, like, for me, the moment where it got real, because, like, I mean, I really didn't know if this would ever happen. Like, it kind of seemed like we would never get one of these games again. Just a few years ago, the idea of licensing players like this was not even on our radar. So, the fact that it's here, and then when the first trailer dropped, and you just see, the Clemson players running down the hill, the turnover celebrate, like everything just looks like exactly what I would imagine a college football video game would look like 10 years, 10 years in the future from the last one we got. So yeah, I mean, like, I think just the moment I booted it up and played a game at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, like, it just, everything was so real. I've seen a million games there in person, and it felt like I was there. And I think the old games had that feeling to, as well as they could given 2013 technology, but it just pales in comparison to the way they've created the atmospheres in this game. And the gameplay itself, I think, is so reflective of college football. Like, everyone was worried about it being a Madden reskin, and I think the gameplay is where it is the least Madden reskin like, because it really does play like college football, with RPOs and all that. Like, it everything just feels so good. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, and maybe unfortunately, it is another product of theirs for EA Sports, but perhaps this game is now forcing Madden to kind of raise their level because I feel like once that game drops, next month, there might be people going, "Come on, guys! Like y'all make college football 25 so much better than Madden," which for me was always the case. I was always more of a college football fan, video game wise, versus the NFL. But you're right. Like firing up was great. Getting to listen to the Tech Fight song as they run onto Jones AT&T Stadium. The new slash old Texas Tech scoreboard. I think it looked great. Like it. It got me excited about the upcoming season and kind of seeing how all the renovations and what that's going to look like in Texas Tech now. It was so weird watching them run onto the field with the Adidas triple stripe and the different uniform that they have in there, the variations. And there are some schools who have like, I think I counted Arizona State as like 17 different like uniform combinations. So the fact that they got all of those in there, some schools have more than others. I mean, obviously schools like Alabama, Penn State, you're going to have your traditional sets, but then you have a school like Michigan who's going to have like a solid yellow or a solid gold jerseys. It was really good. I enjoyed it just from the jump, and again we're talking about not being disappointed at anything that we really saw. But for me, when you talk about the best parts of this game, they have made this game pretty challenging. If you're not gonna just jump into the game, start throwing the ball 50 to 60 times, scoring 70 points a game. It's not going to be that up and the down because of the difficulty once you start playing, once you start throwing, and even you kind of mentioned to it, you alluded to it earlier with the stadiums and the stadium pulse and the shaking, and your quarterback, he can't do the hot reads. People can't hear you as you're trying to make audibles at the line, call hot routes. it's as realistic as possible, and that's why I think I love it so much.
Yeah, the game's tough. There's no doubt about it. Like I've mostly been playing on All American, and that's been about all I can handle. And I was a Heisman player on NCAA 14. Now, granted, like I haven't picked up Madden in a couple years. Like I'm definitely not as good as at these games as I used to be. But like still, it's tough, and I think it's tough in a mostly ratings based way. Like when you're playing against a team with really athletic, fast DBs, like they're going to close on the ball fast. They're going to make plays, when the ball's in the air, if you lob it up there. In the same sense, if your quarterback's accuracy ratings are not where they need to be, they will, not to a necessarily like aggressive degree, but they will slightly underthrow or slightly overthrow balls. And that's all it takes against good defenses to throw interceptions. So like, yeah, if you haven't picked up this game and you're thinking about doing it, like just know you're going to throw a lot of interceptions unless you're starting out on like varsity or whatever. Cause it's tricky. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's quite a learning curve there, but I think it's fun and always plays really nicely. And I think there's good balance to where like you'll make a mistake, you'll throw a bad interception, but then, one of your really good DBs will make a nice play on the ball. So it kind of balances out, I feel like.
Yeah, and the good thing, I think, like the Ultimate Team, I know a lot of people like that on Madden, and I like that they brought that to the college level, where if you pre-ordered it, you got some of the legends of the game. Build your Ultimate Team. I mean, that's become, I think, as big a feature in sports video games now as it's ever been, and maybe bigger than maybe some of the gameplay. I could think of playing MLB The Show, and I personally like Road to the Show, but some people like building, playing competitive player versus player. I think the Ultimate Team is great, and it kind of gives you that. We've all done it as football fans. We're like, well, what if we had, for me being a tech guy, what if I had uh, Michael Crabtree on the outside, but my quarterback's Patrick Mahomes? Well, you could do that in this game. What if I had, Tim Tebow and he's throwing to, Ricky Pearsall. I mean, there's all these different, combinations you can do, which I think is great. And I think that only just adds to the value and the replayability of this football game, which there's still so much that we haven't even scratched the surface on. And I've been playing it for 2 weeks. I think you've been playing it for about a week. So there's still a lot to do. But, I think when you look at kind of the Ultimate Team, that is going to only enhance your experience playing college football 25.
Yeah, I mean, so full disclosure, like I can't stand Ultimate Team. I've never been a fan of Ultimate Team. I've never really spent much time in Ultimate Team at all. But obviously, I know a lot of people do, and they've clearly put quite a bit of emphasis on it. I'm glad to hear, because I was a little worried because of how much of an emphasis Ultimate Team has become in like Madden. I was a little worried that would receive like the lion's share of the development attention rather than like Dynasty and Road to Glory, which are the modes that I personally care a lot more about. It doesn't really seem like that was the case though. So that's been encouraging, but I'm just not the guy to speak on Ultimate Team if that's what you're into, because I'm not. But I think what you said about just barely scratching the surface, like that's how I feel about this game. It was almost like overwhelming when I started playing it. And after my first few games, which I, played like a game as Florida, played a game as LSU, just kind of wanted to check out the teams I'm most familiar with. But after that, I started doing random teams just because I wanted to see what they've got. And it was really interesting. Like, I think in the old games, they would have like, the run out of the tunnel traditions, and it would be specific for the most part for like the big schools. But at smaller schools, it was all pretty generic, and they've really gone in and like I don't know the specifics for these schools, so I can't speak to the exact accuracy, but like everything in terms of like the traditions, like how they run out, how the band lines up, it seems like it had quite a bit of attention to detail. And that all goes into the way the gameplay works too, like with the playbooks. Like I remember I played a random play now game as Ohio, and Ohio runs this kind of unique pistol-based offense that has all these plays that I haven't encountered anywhere else in the game. Like I'm sure there are other teams that do it, but I haven't played as any other team that runs that kind of scheme yet. So like that game, just like that one play now game was like a total unique experience because it was, a totally different offensive setup to what I had been doing in the other games. So that's to me the most impressive part, is just how much they've really nailed the, like, I know their tagline was every team is someone's favorite. And like, I think they did a really good job in that regard.
I also like the fact that you can, you talked about the different playbooks and the different styles, but man, you can still pull up Navy triple option football, baby. You're talking Service Academy football. I think it's fun, especially in the way that the modern game is, and you can really slow things down to a point with Navy, and I think that's going to make things fun. If you can do that. Also, like I know we're going to talk about Road to Glory here in a little bit, but I like the fact that you can go in, you can play a season with this team and be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to hit the transfer portal. I'm going to head over here. So I mean, they made it very realistic. I mean, hey, I'm gonna play a season here. Maybe you start at Jacksonville State, or maybe you start at South Alabama, or you started any one of these other schools. And you're like, I'm going to go up and play with the big boys, or go. I'm going to transfer into the SEC, the ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12. Or maybe you're crazy and you transfer into the Pac-12 and try to make the college football playoff in the most ridiculous, hardest way possible. But I absolutely love that, and so I'm glad to see those things. Now, I will say there are some things that I want to adjust that need to be adjusted in this game. And I'm going to go homer here. How come Texas Tech doesn't have either one of their mascots in the game? The masked rider leading the team on the field, not there. Touching the saddle as they go onto the field, not in the game. Raider Red, I mean, you could say he looks like Yosemite Sam, but whatever. He's not in the game. So it's like, for me, there's still some that weren't in there. I wonder if it was a licensing issue with a couple of these other things, Tyler. No jump around in between the third and fourth quarter at Camp Randall Stadium. There was no inner Sandman as Virginia Tech runs off the field. Like, those are two of like the biggest like traditions that come to mind that weren't in the game. So I wonder if that's a licensing issue or something that maybe they can fix in a future patch or maybe a future game edition. I'm not real sure, but I would like to see a few of those things.
Yeah, so I was actually listening to an interview recently with one of the devs for the game where they actually answer that the jump around and enter Sandman thing that was a licensing issue. It's just very expensive to license for a song that plays for 30 seconds while the team runs out for one of 134 teams, and that's it. So I don't know about that. I mean, I do know they did say that they're looking to like maybe patch some assets into the game later. Maybe like if teams debut new uniform sets and stuff like that, and maybe they'll get the tech stuff in there too. I don't know. I mean, going back to like things that need to be better, like I'll just say this, like I'm loving the game. I'm having a great time with it. I think it's really fun. This game really badly needs a patch, like so badly. A few things, like the main thing for me, and like I love Dynasty. Like I've been so excited to sink my teeth into Dynasty, but I've actually held off on that. Mostly because the sim logic in this game, from at least my experience playing Road to Glory, is not quite where it needs to be. A lot of weird upsets happen, and just a lot of just weird logic with the rankings. Like, there will be multiple undefeated teams, and a 3-loss team is number one. Like, it doesn't make any sense. They need to work on that. The CFP, like in my Road to Glory, I think there were like 4 G5 teams that made the CFP. Like, just stuff that kind of bothers me from like a realism perspective, they need to tweak. And I think some gameplay stuff too just needs to be ironed out a little bit, though I do really like the gameplay.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the sliders and like, which things I need to tweak here and there. And those are things that you kind of figure out as you play. One thing, talking about the realism, the one that bothered me, I think when I went through my freshman or sophomore year in Road to Glory, and a guy from Jacksonville State won the Heisman. Like, I'm not saying that it can't happen, but it can't happen. Okay, like we know that nobody from a small school like that is going to win the Heisman unless they have an undefeated season. They put up some gaudy numbers, and they're like number 5 seed in the college football playoff. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And also, like, going back to the simming, like even with the super simming, like when you're in Road to Glory or when you're in like if you do a Dynasty as an offensive coordinator or whatever, like the logic there, I just don't even understand it sometimes. Like teams can score touchdowns in 15 seconds. Like you will, in a minute and a half of game time, there will be like 21 combined points scored. Like it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And like I think there's kind of a rubber banding issue too. Like, you can't really, maybe you've had, like, tell me if you've had a different experience from what I have, but this is what I've experienced and from what I've heard from other people too. Like you can't blow teams out in this game when you're simming on defense, because you could be up 3 scores and they're going to score a touchdown to cut it to 2 in 10 seconds. Like that's just how this game works. You could be, stopping them all game, but then once you get to that like 3 score threshold, they're going to start catching up. And so it's just some things like that I think really need to be tweaked, that like, I guess just maybe weren't play tested enough or whatever.
Yeah, I have noticed that. Like most recently, I was playing a game as a quarterback on Road to Glory. We were down 3 touchdowns. I led them all the way back. We go for 2. We get the lead with like 25 seconds left. I'm thinking, okay, this game's over. And like next thing I know, there's 10 seconds left in the game, and I'm down 2 points again because they drove down and kicked the field goal. And I'm like, in 10 seconds, they just drove down and and those are things that they can tweak. But it doesn't, for me, any of that takes away from what they've done. But like I said, there's always adjustments in every game. I think you could point to any video game, and there's always going to be things. I would say to adjust this, just that. There's always over adjustments, whatnot. Kind of some tweaks to be made. But overall, I mean, this is a fantastic product. I love it, and I'm going to continue playing it all the way up to football season, through football season. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Tyler, who's your favorite team to play with, and are you going to say that team that they might play like a version of the Jaws song, and then it kind of converts into a school fight song? Maybe a team down on the swamp.
Honestly, they're actually not that fun to play in this game. I got to be honest with you. The defense, the defense is pretty good, but Florida's offensive line is horrendous in this game.
I feel like all offensive line.
Yeah, it's definitely been a problem with most teams I've played for, but it's especially a problem with Florida, and it's been driving me crazy in Road to Glory. Like I think I took like 60 sacks in one season in Road to Glory, just because I kept
QB stat, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I've learned, another thing, like a little helpful tips and tricks if you're listening to this, you have to adjust protection with the offensive line. Like give it a half slide in the direction of wherever the mic is, because if you don't do that, like they're going to swarm you and you will have absolutely no time. Like that's another thing. I think the play action timing can be kind of broken in this game. Like I don't like calling play action very much because it's very rare that you actually have time to make a play when you call play action.
Yeah, no, the pocket gets muddy really quick. And so, and if I have a tip on this before I get into mine, is really pay attention, especially in Road to Glory, with your skill points and where you're putting them, because that will impact your gameplay a lot. So, I mean, and we'll talk more Road to Glory here in a minute, but, do pay attention to that. We talked about my favorite teams to play with. I'm actually not going to say Texas Tech. I do love Texas Tech. I had a lot of fun playing as Ohio. Kind of talk about that pistol offense. I did enjoy that. The Fighting Illini, I liked playing with them just because they're more of a run based, and I'm a huge running back advocate, I guess you could say. So I had a lot of fun playing with Illinois. I thought I would have more fun playing with the Navy triple option. I think it's a thing where I've just got to spend more time with it, because the controls, like knowing how to hold the ball, how to pitch it. When I first started, I was like, why do they keep handing it off? Because I was hitting the wrong button or what have you. So it was interesting playing with some of those other teams because I enjoyed it. But again, like you were talking about the offensive lines, you better adjust protections because you're going to need it.
Yeah. But who else I actually had a lot of fun playing as in this game is NC State with Grayson McCall, the RPO game with that team, with Concepcion, like the good receivers they got, like that, they're pretty fun on offense. I'll give them that. Have it still, like, that's the thing. Like I want to get into the modes and stuff, but there's part of me that still just wants to keep playing play now games, because there's 120 odd teams I haven't used yet.
Yeah, I honestly, I haven't looked to see, but if they have the new ULM helmets, I might go play with them. I don't know if you've seen them. It's like the fighter jet, like shark teeth on the helmet.
Yeah.
They just recently released that the school, or they announced, showed it on Twitter or X. Um, I think if they could put that in the game, I'll definitely use them because and I know this sounds dumb, but if you have you have a cool looking uniforms, I will likely play with that team. The one team that I will never play with, I'm just going to say it right now, because I'm biased. Boise State. I hate that blue field. I'm never going to play for that team, and I'm never going to play with
Man,
that.
you're a blue field hate, dude. It's cool. I love the blue field. The blue field.
I don't know. I can't get behind it. Like it hurts my eyes to look at.
It does hurt the eyes a little bit, but I still think it's cool.
I mean, wouldn't it Eastern Washington, didn't they have like a red field? Like,
yeah, they have blood red. They do blood. Their field's like blood red with black end zones.
Yeah, it's crazy looking at that. All right, let's talk a little bit road to glory. We've kind of talked about it a little bit. Favorite position? Would you say quarterback? Have you tried different positions?
I haven't yet, but I've always been a quarterback guy in Road to Glory. I kind of I get bored running the ball. Like I know a lot of people love being running backs. I get bored with it after a little bit. And then I've just always been so bad at using receivers and defense that I just generally try to stay away from that in Road to Glory.
I think the lack of positions that you can choose kind of, you're kind of backed into a corner where you have to play. There's only 5 positions, and defensively, if you were going to tell me, oh, you got to play we want you to, road to glory on defense. Let me be an edge rusher. Like I think that would be fun. I'm not as excited about trying to play corner. I'm not as excited about trying to play slot corner or middle linebacker. Now, if you would give me an edge rusher or let me play like safety, I probably have a lot more fun with it. I'm a running back guy, like you said. Some people like to do it, you don't. I like to be that hybrid back. I can line up outside. I can as a wide receiver, or I can run the football. So I kind of like doing that. The quarterback is fun to a point, but also until you get down the controls and it probably need to spend more time in play now, trying to get used to the passing and figuring out which playbook fits your play style, because I will say that does have that can impact your success playing quarterback. Me personally, I like more outbreaking routes, not so much the in breaking. I like to throw on the outside the numbers. So hey, maybe I'd fit better playing with the Tennessee playbook. With the way that they line up and things. Looking at that road to glory, obviously we talked about the positional where we like to play. Are you I'm going to stick with one team for 4 years, or are you more of a guy like, let me start with a small school, transfer around? Like, how have you played with that? And have you played with the different ratings, whether you're elite, blue chip, contributor, or underdog?
Yeah, so not really yet. The first thing I wanted to do was just kind of do the more typical path, like be a 5-star quarterback. I ended up going to Florida, and I'm kind of working my way through that now. I really want to do one where you start as like a 3-star and go somewhere small and then do the transfer portal, like transfer up somewhere bigger, wherever there's interest. I think it's really cool that they've done the different sort of backstories, like, tried to make it a little more varied than it's been in the past. I think it maybe works a little bit better in theory than in practice. Like I've heard people that tried to do the underdog, like the 2-star, just not see the field for 4 years, like just sim and not even sniff a position battle and just be stuck on the bench. So that sounds like it might not be the most optimized way to play. I've had a lot of fun with Road to Glory. I think if I had like one major criticism with it, it would be I was able to become the starter a little too quickly, I think, despite being like lower rated. Like I went to Florida. I was like a 79, 80 overall and beat out 84 overall Graham Mertz, who was having like a great year. Like, I think they maybe need to fix the logic with that a little bit. And then it's also kind of weird that like despite playing well and like leveling up coaches' trust, I still like my overall is still pretty low. Like I just haven't gained a lot of XP, and the like I haven't gained coaches' trust to the point where I can like audible or anything like that yet. And I remember all that coming relatively quickly in the old game. So I'm not really sure. Like I'll just need to finish this career before I can like give full thoughts on how all that like works. But those have kind of been my only criticism so far. Like the progression doesn't necessarily feel like super balanced.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I think that they could adjust a little bit is, so I started out as a running back, a 5-star running back at Stanford, and won the Doak Walker my freshman year because I was a starter right off the bat. And then I transferred to another school, and even though I had a higher overall than the other guy that was already there, I still wasn't the starter, which I'm pretty sure if you go in the transfer portal, you're not going to go transfer to somewhere to be a backup, especially if you were starter somewhere, unless you're a quarterback, unique situation, things of that nature. So that was one thing I was kind of, I don't know about, but I thoroughly enjoyed the running back thing. But I think the overall is so predicated on you putting in those skill points. So that might be a reason why, and kind of adjusting that. But yeah, I don't know. Like if you were, yeah, we know in the world of 5 stars, you probably are going to start relatively early, but it's not like you went to a school that didn't already have a 5-star quarterback waiting in the wings. That'd be like
Yeah,
if I would have created a quarterback, went to Texas, and then bypassed Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, and now I'm the starter. Like in
yeah, and
year
I
one.
started third string behind Lagway. Like I beat out Lagway within like 3 weeks of starting my true freshman year, and then beat out Mertz, who was like had like 14 touchdowns and no picks on the year, and they benched him coming off the best game of his career. Like I understand it's a video game and whatever, but like that, I feel like they did that, even that aspect of it better in the old games. So I think that maybe needs to be tweaked a little bit.
Yeah, and that's not to knock anybody who wants to do those things, right? Like, oh, I want to be the 5-star guy. I want to go to
Mhm.
Alabama, and I want to start over Jalen Milrow. I get it. I guess I'm more of a realistic type game player. I guess like if it's too easy, I don't want to play it anymore. But
Yeah,
that wasn't the case with this game. They did not
no,
make it easy.
no.
But I that's me. Like if I'm going to create a quarterback, and let's just say I want to recreate Patrick Mahomes and send him to Texas Tech, I don't want him to start over Baron Morton right away. Like it wouldn't be fun for me.
Mhm.
But I think overall, when you look at Road to Glory and kind of how that whole system is built, I got more positives than negatives on it. Um, but I kind of agree with Cardell Jones. I didn't come to play school. Like I don't want to have to pay attention to that, which I know is just another added thing where you got to make sure you're focusing on schoolwork and no, I came here to build my brand, play football, win football games, win a trophy, and if I can't do it here, I'm going to transfer out. But I understand why it's in there.
Dude, I felt like such a nerd because I, without even trying, maxed out my GPA. Like I'm like I had a 3.2. I wasn't even like making that a major emphasis. You just ended up having the highest GPA you can have.
You were just trying to get the highest GPA for 3 years so you could be a graduate transfer, and it didn't
Yeah,
matter anymore.
exactly. I just wasn't trying to fail, and I was like making sure the meter wasn't in the red. And I guess whatever I did was enough to max out the GPA.
Yeah, I like I said, I get it, but I didn't come to play school. You know what I mean? I came to play football, and it's a video game. Why did we have to add this aspect in there? But overall, I think anybody who fires up college football 25 will absolutely love Road to Glory, especially if you like the Madden stories, if you like Road to the Show, those type of deals. I think that's a perfect one. All right, so as we want to wrap this up, I know it's a relatively short show, but I wanted to kind of get your overall thoughts, your general thoughts on the game as a whole. Obviously, we started off talking about how it exceeded expectations, but just generally speaking, how did you feel about the game?
Yeah, so, like the hype for this game was just unreal, especially for like a sports game, which I mean, at this point, especially, have just got the reputation of being, the most soulless, low effort, year after year churn outs in the entire video game industry. And like my expectations were high, but at the same time, like I didn't need much to be happy with this game. Like I wanted a modern college football game with real players, updated offenses, and like the transfer portal and stuff like that. And they delivered on all those things. And I think the game plays great. Like to me, like, you could play NCAA 14 and it starts to feel dated because of, conference realignment and stuff like that. But like, and the CFP obviously didn't exist in NCAA 14. But to me, like even in 2013, that game was starting to feel a little bit dated in terms of just how it played. It didn't really look and feel like how college football was actually operating with where offenses were going. I think this game just absolutely nails it, man. It feels so good. The option stuff, like it's so smooth. It really does feel like, especially because I've gone back and just the last few days when there's nothing on TV, like I've been watching some games from last season. And like, it really does. Like you play the game and then you watch real college football. And I'm like, I just saw a play I've called before. And that, I think in the old game, just that feeling was never quite there. So like, as we've talked about, a lot of things that need to be fixed, a lot of things need to be addressed. This game needs a patch. It needs some tweaks, but like, I think the foundation of what they've given us here is fantastic. And I'm loving it. And I feel like you said, like I've just barely scratched the surface here. Like I said earlier, I haven't even sunk my teeth into Dynasty yet, which is where I'm going to spend the bulk of my time with this game. So
there's that. Yeah. There's also, people who create their own logos. I mean, there's all these custom teams and, things that you can add to the game. And, that makes it fun. And I'm with you. I think when you look at the feel of the game, it feels like college football. I can definitely agree to that. The one thing I was happy with is gone are the days of, turning on the game and you got quarterback number 4, dropping back to pass. Now I know exactly who that is. If it was Penn State and it was QB number 15, no, that's Drew Allen. Like I do know that much. So it's nice that they have those worked in. And are we shocked at all that Arch Manning ultimately ended up being in the game? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that one was a simple case of the Mannings were never going to sell the rights to their family name for $600. He ended up getting, I think, like $50,000 in NIL deal to promote the game, and which that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, no, I don't know that they were never. Yeah. Oh, how much are you going to give me for my name? $600? No, I'm out. Don't put me in that game. Which it worked out, like you said. They got what they ultimately wanted. So that was a good deal for them. But overall, like I said, me and Tyler have talked about it. We've actually been texting back and forth for like 2 weeks talking about this game, the different things that we've seen, and we will continue to play this game, find new things, find new ways to keep ourselves entertained as we wait for the 2024 college football season. But that's going to do it for this edition. Come back next week. We'll have more topics as we get ready for the 2024 season. Tyler, I'm Patrick. We'll see you next week.